Turn video on. And let's see. Okay, why is mine off? There, okay. And mine's on.
Yeah.
And we're recording. And full screen. There we go. Okay, well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And I need to squat down so I'm visible here. And it's great to have you. Everybody's really excited. I know I'm really excited to have you here with us. And I want to turn the floor over to my students so they can ask you some questions about your film.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Lin Hua, why don't you start us off?
Okay. When you think you wanna be actor and why? And did you have any worry about that you are Asian?
When I was in college, I was a business major, and I got really very bored doing it. And I would see all these performances that my friends were actors doing performances, and I would join talent shows, and basically I would act at nighttime while I was doing business school in the daytime. And then when I decided to pursue acting full time, I wasn't too worried about being an Asian actor. I kind of knew all the challenges that would be in front of me, like being stereotyped and things like that. But I just always believed kind of that if I worked hard and studied hard and just became a really good actor, that eventually, I would get some opportunities to show them what I could do. And that I did that for maybe like 6 years acting, and then Better Luck Tomorrow came along, and that's when I was about ready to quit probably after 6 years, because I was getting a lot of the roles like a delivery boy, and they always asked me, do I know martial arts, or to like just pretend that I was from a different country, so they always wanted an accent. So they didn't really let me play an American ever until with Better Luck Tomorrow. Then all of a sudden I got the opportunity to kind of show everybody what I could do.
Cool. Shoko, your first question?
In this movie, Asian American boys are represented as bad characters. How did you feel when you act it?
I'm sorry, that was a little bit mumbled up.
She says that the in the film, the Asian American boys are kind of shown as these bad characters. She's wondering how you felt when you were playing the part.
It actually kind of drew me in, because usually whenever before the 6 years before Better Luck Tomorrow, I was always playing the same roles over and over again. And this one I really enjoyed, because one of my favorite movies is a movie that Martin Scorsese directed called Goodfellas, and it's about these people who are the part of the mobsters, and but at the same time you kind of understand where they're coming from. They're just trying to like provide for their families, so it's kind of it's not a very clear and cut reason why they're doing what they're doing. So I really enjoyed that these characters were very flawed, but they weren't necessarily bad people. They just were good people making bad decisions, and they just kept on making the bad decisions over and over again. And actually, a lot of people, when this movie came out, asked that very same question: why would you make such a movie about such bad people? And this movie is actually based on a true story. So this actually happened in 1990 in a high school called Sunny Hills High School, and it was called the Honor School Murders. And it's about these Asian honor roll students who kind of got away with a lot of things, like cheating on their exams, and they just kind of were too smart for their own good, and they thought that they can get away with murder. And eventually they got caught. So when the director saw all the stuff in the news, he wanted to write a movie saying how these kids got to being honor students to ultimately doing something so terrible. So that's kind of, it wasn't something that was totally made up. This stuff actually does happen and has happened. So this movie is kind of exploring why that happened.
You talk about the Samba, number 3. First question.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is it real American student life? I have the image, for example, many students drink alcohol after school and drive cars in dangerous way and so on. Is it wrong or is it real life? The American students life.
What was that last part? Is it real?
Yeah, is it real?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't real in the movie, but we actually asked to when we were drinking all the alcohol in the movie, we asked to get some real alcohol, but the director wouldn't let us do it because you act it's your face turns really red after you drink, so we wanted to get that red glow, but yeah, all that stuff was not real in the movie that we were drinking. It was all iced tea, I think. And but definitely there are kids in America who do that. They drink and drive, and we were just trying to portray what they would do. They don't care about anything. They kind of think that the rules don't apply to them.
Thank you.
Give it to Haruka. How about your first question?
When I went to high school in Canada, sometimes I watched that Asian gathered and made a group. What makes them like that?
Oh, that they gathered together and hung out only with Asians? Is that what the question is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's not only in Canada. It's the same in the United States too. It's kind of, I think, the same with kind of any group of minorities in the United States or Canada. It just, you sort of kind of feel comfortable with people who kind of understand where you're coming from and are kind of all in the same boat. Like, for example, just being an Asian American, it's kind of a weird situation where you have, my family and my culture, and then learning Chinese growing up, and then, but still being born in America, but I don't look like the typical American. And so it's kind of a weird thing that Asian Americans only kind of understand. And probably, not many people who are from, China or Japan may understand, because everybody is kind of in the same boat in terms of being Japanese or Chinese, and then they don't really have to think about that aspect too much. So it's such a small group. Like when I was in school growing up, there was only 5 Asian people in the whole school. So you just sort of kind of gravitate together. And because you kind of understand each other, and then maybe there's some foods that you eat that you have in common, and while the other kids are looking at you eating certain foods, and you're like, what is that? So I think it's just something very common. But it's interesting. There's some groups that actually some people that try to actually stay away from that, who don't want to hang out with Asian people because they don't want to be seen as they're trying to be into a certain group. So that's also another interesting situation.
Yuji. How about you pass it on to Yuji? Number 2. He just answered number 1, so let's go number 2.
Good morning.
Morning.
There is a scene that white people made fun of Asian American. Is this frequent in American high school?
For my experience, yeah, for the most part, yeah. When I was growing up, I would, as I said, there's only 5 of us in the whole my whole grade. So yeah, I would definitely get people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, ching chong, that kind of stuff." And I doubt people in China would get that. But yeah, I would be made fun of, along with my other friends who are Chinese too. But also people who were black. There weren't many people who were black in my school. They got made fun of. So it just kind of whoever the minority is sort of gets made fun of. But the interesting thing that I'm seeing is I have a lot of friends who are dancers, and they're on a popular TV show here called America's Best Dance Crew, and they're just really great dancers. And I remember a friend of mine. He said he was giving dance lessons to a teenager, and the teenager, who was not Asian, said to him, "Oh wow, you're so lucky to be Asian because all the cool kids are Asian." And my friend was like, "What?" He's like, "That was not the case when I was growing up." So things are starting to change, I think, because people are seeing that Asian people can kind of be good at other things, like being on TV and being great dancers. So I think that's just one of the things that has been changing things of Asians doing different things in film and television besides playing delivery boys and having to be translators on a TV show or something like that.
Your next question, number 3.
Thank you. One question. What's
Hold on a second. My wife is. All right, that was my wife. She was saying that she's taking the kids to class.
okay?
Okay, I'm sorry.
What do you want to tell us through this movie?
What do you want to tell us through the movie?
To tell us through the movie. Kind of a lot of different things. Whenever I'm asked this question, it's a lot of different levels in terms of one, just Asian faces kind of just going about their day and their lives. That's one, and then another one is communication between kids and their parents. This is kind of how things sort of happen in terms of kind of the good kids going bad, is that a lot of parents kind of leave their kids alone if they happen to get good grades, because they think if they get good grades, everything is going perfect in their life, when one has really nothing to do with the other. It's usually actually the kids who are really smart, who know how to sort of play the game, know how to get the good grades, how to suck up to the teachers, know how to put all these extracurricular things on their resumes to get into good colleges. Those are the kids who are kind of dangerous, because they know they're too smart for their own good, and they kind of sort of play the game of life very well. So that's why in the movie you never see any parents. If you remember that there's never a parent in the movie to kind of show that that absence. Because I know I was left alone because I got pretty good grades in school, and my parents kind of left me alone, and I could have gotten into a lot of trouble because I started hanging out with people who were actually gangsters, but I didn't know that. They were just kind of nice guys who were just but at nighttime they did some pretty bad stuff, and I just was very lucky that I didn't follow them when I was going out at night and things like that. And then I would find out the next day they got into these huge fights and they were stabbing people, and I was like, what? That nice guy that I was talking to? So it's kind of I can see how these kids could get into trouble the way they did in the movie.
Okay, who's next? we already asked number 2. 2番ももうやった。ね。だから3番どうしても選んでください。
In this movie, main characters' conflicts in their own mind are very clear. Have you ever experienced same situations in your daily life?
Yeah, in the conflicts in their mind are very clear. I think in anything where you're trying to make the right decision, it's always I remember a good example is in high school. I mean, that's what kind of helped me with this character was because I got good grades. I remember the teacher, she would let me take a test on the honor system because I got really good grades. She said, okay, I remember I was late for something and I had a prior engagement, and then she gave me an exam and for me to take it by myself, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, really? You're trusting me to do this? I was like wondering, should I go into my notebook that had all the answers, is kind of right there next to me, but she was trusting me, to just take it on my own without the answers. So, I think every day you're just kind of faced with these things. Like if you find, it's just like you find for the very simple thing like finding money on the ground, or a wallet, are you going to return it and keep the money, but return the wallet without the money, or return everything, So it's different levels of stakes and importance of life or death situations. But with Better Luck Tomorrow, you kind of see how things start with something that's very small, which was writing answers for and making money for those cheat sheets, and then returning stolen goods to get the refund money back, and then it's just getting bigger and bigger where they get into a fight with that gang, and they start beating up people, and then they start killing people, and so it just gets worse and worse, showing that one small thing sort of will start growing and growing if you don't be careful.
How about number 3?
What is the easiest things we can do for decreasing stereotypes between many ethnic groups?
I think what's probably the most important thing is basically for people in my line of work is to kind of do projects like Better Luck Tomorrow, so opens up people's eyes who aren't Asian, that that there's a whole group of people that hasn't their stories really haven't been told. They're kind of always hired to do the same things over and over again, and it's just Hollywood trying to make money. They know that certain faces make money and make money overseas. People recognize Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. They wouldn't recognize most Asian Americans, besides international stars, who are from Jackie Chan or Ken Watanabe, but so it's taking that risk of a new face who is Asian American and something that they haven't seen them in before. But I think with that example of my friends who dance on that TV show, it sort of showed the American public, wow, most people, when I was growing up, always assumed Asians were just bad dancers because you never saw them dancing on the dance floor. But then all of a sudden, flash forward 20 years later, you see them on TV and they always are winning the competitions, and it's now almost a stereotype that all Asians are good dancers now. So it's kind of, there's an author, her name is Amy Tan, and she had said like 30 years ago that once you see someone up on screen who's 40 feet tall and 40 feet wide, and they have an engaging story, you will want to, you'll want to be with them, you want to root for them, and all of a sudden if that face is an Asian face, that starts changing perceptions. Like for example, with Better Luck Tomorrow, all of a sudden we had so many, fans, even though we were doing these horrible things on camera, but because they felt a connection that they remembered, oh, there's someone like that in high school, like Virgil, who was always a kind of a jokester, and people remember, being in love with someone like Stephanie, and but they never, got the same, affection back, and they remember a jerk like Steve's character. So it was kind of very universal. Even though our faces were Asian, people were remembering their own experiences and seeing their own experiences when they were in high school themselves. And all of a sudden, it didn't matter that we were Asian at all. And all of a sudden, if more movies are like that and more TV shows are like that, it starts changing things.
Let's see. Your first question.
When you read this movie scenario at first time, what do you think about it?
About the role?
Yeah.
Yes.
The first time you read the script.
I automatically thought about that movie called Goodfellas, which is about, as I said before, this mobster who kind of, sort of grows into the life of being this gangster. And it reminded me so much of that, where things weren't very black and white, where you start doing things, to sort of get the easy way out. And I just related that a lot to my own experiences in high school with again, like my parents leaving me alone a lot and assuming that I was doing the right thing all the time because I was getting good grades. And so I could see, my life possibly going in that same direction if I didn't make the right choices. So and here's another thing whenever I got a script for other projects 6 years before Better Luck Tomorrow, they would say, hey, I want you to read for Mike. And I would go, okay, I would flip through the script and I'd say, oh, okay, Mike is on page 57, and the script is usually like 120 pages. So like somewhere in the middle or somewhere to the end, and he only has like 2 lines or something like that, where the director said, I want you to audition for Ben. I open the script, and Ben is literally the first person on page 1. And he's throughout the entire movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never had the opportunity to sort of, it's kind of like, I've been acting and training like an athlete, but imagine if an athlete is training to run, and he never gets to run a real race. And that's kind of how I felt those first 6 years, where I was like, I was training and taking all these different acting classes, and all the roles that I would get would be like, hi, delivery from Happy Garden. And then that's it, where this one, for Better Luck Tomorrow, the scene opens with me and Virgil, we see the cell phone ringing, and then you see me, engage with Stephanie, and then she likes me, she doesn't like me, and then me talking with Steve, and us, playing that game, like he likes her, but he thinks I'm a loser, and I hate him, and I mean, there's just so much more depth, and it's all of a sudden, it's like, finally, I get to be challenged, and it was so, invigorating, be like, finally, I get to do something that I've been practicing and training for many, many years. So those roles come very few and far between for most actors, but even less for Asian American actors. So it's kind of really just hanging in there and doing all the other kind of roles that aren't as challenging until one comes along, like Better Luck Tomorrow, or you write your own roles, and you make your own movies and projects. So yeah, when I read the role, it was I couldn't believe that I was reading it and that I was, I actually got the part.
Your next question. Number 2. Keep going.
Did you think this movie is given a favorable reception by critics?
What about critics?
Was it given talk about the reception that it got from critics?
Critics, for the most part, loved it because they hadn't seen anything like this in the cinema, really ever. The closest thing would be 10 years prior, in 1993, when the Joy Luck Club came out. But then it wasn't all Asian American actors. So this one, a lot of people were excited to see this director Justin Lin do something that was, kind of came out of nowhere, and with actors that no one had really heard of, but we had all been acting for many years. So it was a nice wake up call, and they enjoyed the storytelling and they enjoyed the performances, and they liked the way it looked. So it was a very exciting time. People, we got very few bad reviews. So it was well received.
3. Keep going.
What is your expectation from audiences who watch this movie?
I remember the best comment I got from the movie. It was during one of the movie theaters that we were at, and we would greet the people coming out after they saw the movie and say thank you for coming to see the movie and supporting the film. And I remember one person who wasn't Asian. He says after the first 5 minutes, I totally forgot you guys were Asian, and that was so. It was so great because every time I go into a room to audition, my face dictates kind of what the part is or what's it going to be, and this time the performances and the situations were so universal that he just was so absorbed into the story from the performance and the storytelling that it didn't matter what race we were. It's kind of he was just watching and enjoying the film and the story unfold. And that's kind of what you hope for any actor hopes for. That they're every actor they're hoping that you're not looking at how weird their nose looks or or anything that's distracting. They just want you to focus on the performance.
Pass it down to Mayu in the corner. Dodge the cord. People's heads. It won't reach. Why don't you walk around? We need a wireless mic. First question?
What is your favorite scene in this movie?
There she is.
Oh, what was it?
What's your favorite scene?
Favorite scene? My favorite scene in the movie is when after we were Derek starts kicking that guy who made fun of me in those green and white jackets. After we beat them up, we get into a car, and then all of a sudden we're side by side with a bunch of gangsters from in a different car right next to us, and he shows up that gun like kind of threatening way. And all of a sudden, I just love how that scene changes, because 1 second in the beginning of the scene, we're on top of the world and we think we're so great and that we're so tough, and then all of a sudden those gangsters, real gangsters, drive by, and all of a sudden it just shuts us down, and it kind of puts these guys back in their place. Like, hey, you guys think you're so big and so tough, but you're really nothing in this world, in terms of being gangsters. So you're just kind of playing house, you're not really as tough as you think you are. And it kind of, I just think that scene is so great, where that you see that dynamic change in all of us, and it's so realistic, because we've all been in situations where we think we're the best, and then all of a sudden something comes and will knock us down and make us humble again. So I think that, and that scene doesn't have a lot of words too. It's all in the what you see, So I think that's my favorite scene.
And your number 2, your next question.
What did you pay attention to when you acted as Ben?
What I paid attention to,
Like what kind of things were you careful about?
I wanted to make sure, because I was playing a teenager, I was actually 27 years old when I shot that. So I was 10 years older. I just wanted to make sure I didn't act too old. You know, when you're older, you're very confident. You've kind of seen a lot of the world, and I wanted Ben to kind of still have that innocence, but thinking that he knew a lot, but he really didn't. And that actually kind of helps when you're older, because when you're actually young, you really do think you know everything. Whereas if you have 10 more years experience, you can kind of look back and remember how you were. And so it was just being very careful of, because everybody, you want to always look good and be confident, but I had to step back and remember what it was like to be, insecure about certain things. Like for example, talking to Stephanie. I had to remember what it was like in high school to be, very nervous talking to a girl that I liked. So and just the way I walked and carried myself. So I just was very conscious about that.
Okay. First one.
What do you think in some parts of this movie, Asian actors were shown as a opposite character compared with a stereo character?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What do you think in some parts of this movie, Asian actors were shown as a opposite character compared with a stereotype character?
Oh, I see. Okay. You mean like the actual real actors? Were they different from the real characters in the movie, you mean?
Explain what you mean.
You mean like the real characters, like the actual actors? Were they different from their characters in the movie?
You're asking about the characters, or are you asking about the actors? The real people, or the characters in the film? Characters in the film.
Yeah, character in the film.
So I think she's asking about how the. Oh, you're not on the screen anymore, are you? How the characters in the film are sort of don't follow sort of these stereotype characters of sort of the Asian, the delivery boy, or other
Right.
Asian nerd,
Okay.
the science nerd,
Yeah.
or other characters that there's no Long Duck Dong in this film, and so
Yeah.
I think that's what she's.
Okay.
What about your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what was sort of made critics kind of taken aback and were happy that this movie was out, because everybody knew that all Asians aren't these certain characters that we kept seeing in movies, but yet people who make these movies kind of put Asians only in those same roles because they know that that works. People understand that an Asian character is the guy who is very nervous whenever a woman walks by, and he's very good at computers, or he delivers food. And they always show these same things, but people in the real world have friends who are Asian and know that it's not always this way. So it's interesting that it sort of took people aback, because even though they saw it in real life, basically this movie showed what they saw in real life. They saw their Asian friends or Asian cliques in their high schools act this way. They're really smart, but but they were able to get out of a lot of trouble because they were smart. So that was sort of something fresh but still not something that was necessarily new to people who were just living day-to-day life. A good example is if a hospital TV show in America had more Asian doctors, because if you ever go into any hospital, almost all the doctors are Asian. But in America, on TV shows, you know how many doctors are Asian? It's just one person. So it's just kind of very different world that they're showing as opposed to real life. Because anybody in America knows when they go to the hospital, they're going to see a lot of Asian people. But yet on TV, they accept that there's only one Asian, which would be impossible in any hospital in America in real life. So, it was, even though it was opposite the stereotypes in Better Luck Tomorrow, people who, live day-to-day life, it wasn't new to them, but it was refreshing to be able to see that finally on screen.
Want to ask your next question?
How often have you acted a stereotype character after this movie?
What was it? How many?
How often have you acted a stereotype character after this movie?
Oh, okay. So see, after this movie, I decided, after having such a challenging role, I decided to kind of like turn down all these other stereotypical roles because I didn't want to go backwards. The problem was that there wasn't a lot of characters still, that were very challenging. It was still the same stuff because, we made this movie on our own, so we went out of the system. So the system was still the way it was. So it took many years for it to catch up. Like right now, there are a lot of great parts for Asian Americans. But after Better Luck Tomorrow, the system isn't going to change overnight. It's going to take many, many years of people saying, people who are writers and producers saying, hey, there's this great movie called Better Luck Tomorrow that I saw 5 years ago. We should get one of those actors to do this part, and that's how things slowly change. So the year after Better Luck Tomorrow, I turned on everything, and the problem was that there was nothing to act in. I think the year after Better Luck Tomorrow, I made like $130 acting because I turned on everything. So after that year, I decided that I had to take everything because that way I can change things from the inside out. Like for example, if they asked me, if I got a part and they asked me to play something stereotypical, I would give the director a different choice. I would say, hey, how about I do it like this? And it could still be funny, but it won't be as stereotypical, but it'd still be a good character trait. And then the director would usually say, yeah, totally do it that way. Because nobody's looking to make Asian people look bad. They just are kind of ignorant. They don't know anything else. So until they're presented with a different choice by me, I felt it was my I was more empowered, and meaning that I had been acting for so long that I wasn't afraid to speak up. Whereas if a new actor were to go into the stereotypical role, they would just be doing whatever they were asked because they were kind of too scared to say anything, and they don't want to lose their job. But I've been working enough because basically that stereotypical role is going to be cast and performed by somebody. No matter what, it's not going away. So, are you gonna have someone who's brand new, who's just gonna do it as it's written, or have someone like me or someone who has more experience and will give the director or producers a different choice to show what else they can do with it? So I sort of changed my mind that I wouldn't turn on everything. It was almost my duty and my job, with all the experience that I have, to sort of change things and make things not stereotypical.
Okay, and some people are We have more questions, but not everyone made it to class.
Okay.
Oh, the mic's off. I'm sorry. I'm sitting right in front of you. Is that okay? I don't have a chair over here. Let me give myself a chair. I'm making my students be on camera, so I probably should be too. We got in a few minutes left. I'm kind of curious about how, if you could talk a bit more about how you see things changing. I mean, it's been 10, 11 years since Better Luck Tomorrow came out. And you provided us the video link for that one documentary on talking about the rise of YouTube. And is YouTube sort of pushing Hollywood to change, or is it bypassing Hollywood? I mean, it seems that the growth of Asian American performers on YouTube is kind of showing the ways in which Hollywood is still behind the times, out of the loop, and slow to change. So is YouTube going to sort of replace Hollywood in that way, or?
I don't
What's
think
the
it's going to
talk about that
replace
relationship?
Hollywood, but it definitely shows that there is an alternative, that now the TV shows and movies are losing bits of their audience because of all these different platforms, and everyone now is trying to have some sort of online presence to grab some of that. So it definitely won't replace them, but it's nice that it's there, because before, if you wanted to be an actor, you had to play their game, and you had no choice. But now it costs so much money to make a movie now that even people who, if you even have movie stars, it's not guaranteed to make a lot of money with how much money it goes in with marketing and promotion and the cost of the actor's salary. So you see a lot of people now making their own movies for not a lot of money, and it makes a pretty good profit through online distribution, through like Netflix or Hulu. These are I don't know if every country has it, but in America we have these streaming companies called Netflix, Hulu, even on Amazon, and even on YouTube, where you have to pay to watch a movie. And these are all now alternatives. You don't have to go to a movie theater, because then you have to pay the people who run the movie theaters, and it just adds up more and more dollars. So it's nice to have that. That there's there's not just those few 10 people who are running the whole show and have the say of okay, you're allowed in this club, you're not allowed in this club. If you do some good work, and the technology, every computer has some sort of editing software. The cameras are gotten so good and so cheap. I just shot a movie for less than $100,000, and we're definitely going to make our money back, because it costs so little to make. That we're not going out into theaters. We're going straight to video, and so that people can people who want to see it will pay to see it. So it's a nice alternative, because usually, it would be like this, going to a casino and gambling, and saying, please, I hope, I get chosen to make this movie, whereas now the power is in your own hands. So that's really nice.
And what are you working on now?
Right now I am actually doing another movie with the one I just made, with the same director. We're trying to do it very cheap. We're literally just writing out the script right now, but I'm on a TV show called General Hospital. It's called a soap opera. I don't know if you guys have soap operas out there, but it's a show that goes every day, and it's very dramatic, and lots of weird things happen, like twin brothers showing up, and then people who are dead come back alive. And so I play one of the characters on this TV show.
So soap opera is like mainichi no drama. It's on during the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody want to share with Parry what you thought of the film? What you thought of Better Luck Tomorrow? どう思ってた? 誰か教えてあげたいの?
They all hated it.
Somebody. What did you think of the film? Now I knew that if I asked this, everyone would just get really nervous because I didn't tell them I was going to ask, and now the camera's on them, and they're all just like,
Did you show them Genesis at all?
Yeah, well, I put links to the 2 documentary pieces for them to watch online during the week.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So.
Did anybody take a look at Genesis, the making of Better Luck Tomorrow at all?
It was the shorter documentary from a couple weeks ago about the making of the film.
Yeah, that one I think it's a shame that it wasn't on the DVD, just because it's just goes to show how much went into it and how people reacted to it afterwards also. So it was kind of a nice little journey from the beginning where we didn't know where the movie was going to go really, and where we hoped it would go, it actually did. So it's kind of a cool story. I always liked it.
And what students in this class and other classes have said that have watched the film is that, I really have to work to get the message across that for an American audience, seeing a film filled with Asian American actors is an unusual thing. We're used to seeing these very stereotyped roles, or maybe 1 or 2 Asian characters in a film, and because for audiences here, they're used to seeing Asian actors on TV playing every kind of role, right? Yeah. And so you have to tell them, no, this is unusual. And like, well, what? See, for them, it's just a story about high school kids getting into trouble and doing things, and sort of you have to. Had to kind of push to get the message across that it's how this film was groundbreaking in many ways and unusual in many ways. But it's interesting too that for them just having a group of watching a film where, in a sense, the characters get to be just the characters. They're not sort of these groundbreaking Asian characters, but they're just high school kids, right? Because they're so used to seeing shows filled with Asian characters. They're kind of in that sense, a little easier for them to step outside the biases or prejudices that an American audience might have. Right. But so many of them commented that, but all these Asian characters are together. Why are all the Asian characters hanging out together? I thought that was kind of interesting because 5 or 6 different students kind of asked a similar question.
Yeah. Because there aren't that many, so you kind of group together. It's kind of like you could probably in any school. I'm sure in your entire school you didn't know every single Asian face. But in our schools, there were so few that you did, and even in my industry, like people always ask me, do you know this Asian actor? I'm like, yeah, we all know each other because there's so few of us. Even though there's about 100 or so of us, everybody knows of each other because if they're asking for Asian part, they're going to call one of us 100 in, and we're all going to see each other and we're all competing against each other. Yeah.
Well, I think we certainly appreciate your time, and it's been wonderful to have the opportunity to talk with you. I've been recording this, so I'll put it up on the class website for students to be able to watch again. Great. And thanks a lot for your time. I look forward to seeing you in a lot of other films.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.